What up, everybody? It's Player 2 from P1 and P2 Gaming. If you can read, I'm going to be reviewing The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Let me preface this review real quick. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I don't work for anybody. YouTube doesn't pay me. This is just my thoughts on the game. And I'm going to be reviewing it on a 1 to 5 scale. Without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to cover the story of the game first. So first, story of the game follows Geralt of Rivia searching for Yennefer, his lost lover of yore. So Dandelion speaks. And later in the game, you'll be tracking down Geralt's adopted daughter, Ciri. Overall, the story and characters are done extremely well. All the side quest characters as well are done extremely well, except for a few bad apples. So there are some bad voice actors, some unfavorable characters, but that's not too bad. Overall, the story's great. I think it's the biggest thing in this game that you're going to appreciate. You're going to love it a lot, in my opinion. Moving on to graphics. The graphics are a part that I am not a fan of. Being that I played this game on the PlayStation 4, the graphics look good. Like when you're standing still and you're like looking at the sunset and you're like, oh, the lighting's really, it's all lovely. Oh, but then you move and like the frame rate, and especially in some certain areas, is just really bad. It's just really bad. The game chugs, has a ton of pop-in, it's just, made me sick sometimes. Like that's how bad the frames would drop. Not only that, but there were a ton of weird bugs and stuff throughout this game. And this isn't really a graphics thing, but I thought I should bring up that this game's buggy as hell. Like, you could call it the Glitcher 3. It's like, I've heard this joke from somewhere, I don't remember from who, but the Glitcher 3 Wild Hunt is how I would call this game on console. It's ridiculous how many bugs are in the game. And it does break immersion. And it does affect gameplay. Like, there were several instances where I couldn't complete a quest because of bugs. Like near the end of a quest or near the middle of a quest, like a character would bug out or something and I couldn't complete the quest. And it was very infuriating. So, like, here's an example. I was doing a mission where this tower appeared out of nowhere. And the villager's like, oh, you need to go solve that problem. So I'm like, okay, I'll go solve that problem. That's my Geralt impression. And I basically was supposed to fetch this guy in a tower, this wizard, I guess, in a tower of this book. And when I did this, he's like, oh, I'm going to go disable this magic barrier now. So he disables the magic barrier, and he just stands there. Like, does nothing, just stands there for, like, I stood there for 10 minutes waiting for him to, like, not bug out, and he never did. He was stuck. So I had to leave that quest. And one of them... And the other one, which was a very, like, dialogue-intensive quest, like, with a lot of interesting story and background, there was a final boss at the end of this quest. And so I fight this boss, and I drain his health. And basically what happens is, I beat the character, then he walks over to, like, a designated spot, and then he goes, and he's flailing around doing this animation. And, oh my gosh, it was so funny. And I had the enemy's health bar on the top of my screen when I left the area. It wouldn't go away. Like, I was doing other quests and there was still this enemy's health bar on the top of my screen. I was like, what the hell? I had to restart my game and load a prior save to get rid of that health bar. That was super annoying. And not only that, at the last boss battle of the game, the last fight, the game crashed. Now, the game's crashed on me multiple times, but in the end of the last boss, like, after I beat him, he had no health. I beat in the last boss. Crash. I was so pissed. Because I was playing on Death March difficulty, and it was, like, difficult to get his health bar down. Oh, my gosh. Oh, Rage Monkey. Anyways, moving on to gameplay. Gameplay is so basic in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. It is so basic. Oh my god. The game becomes grindy. Yeah, 200 hours of gameplay. Like, first of all, that's not true. Like, the game boasts 200 hours of gameplay. That's not true. Because basically what they're counting as gameplay is they have, like, little markers on your map that will lead you to, like, a guarded chest or maybe a place of power. That's not gameplay. in my opinion. That's not the content of the game that's going to be fun and entertaining. That's grindy as hell. Yeah, 200 hours if it's grindy. Maybe even 300 hours if you want to grind through all that stuff. Oh my gosh. But basically the gameplay is sword play. You have a crossbow, which is your ranged weapon, which isn't really an offensive weapon. It's more like, oh, stun certain enemies with it, a la Bloodborne. So it takes some cues from that. It has 2 different types of dodges, 2 different types of sword swinging, and that's about it. It's very unimpressive, especially when you compare it to something like Bloodborne, where your weapon could transform and it had like 2 or 3 separate attacks with like different jumping attacks, backdashes, gun parries. Like, the PvE in this game sucks. It's just bad. It's grindy. And one of the things that drove me freaking bonkers, and someone tell me something if I did something wrong while playing this game, but the human enemies of the game block constantly. And it is so fucking annoying. I abuse the game spell Axie all the time. That's not even the funny part. Axie can be used to break certain bosses. Like, because Axie, if you make the intensity high enough, you can break certain bosses in the game and just beat their ass without without them contesting you at all. It's hilarious. That's another funny bug I wanted to mention. That shouldn't happen in the game. If that was their intention, then that's stupid. It just breaks the game. There's no fight anymore. There's no tension when you Axie them. And the spells are pretty bare bones. Basically, you don't want to use anything outside of Quen and Axie. They're the only 2 useful spells. That's all I got really to say on gameplay. It's very disappointing. I thought I had a thought, but it's gone. Moving on to the replay value of the game. What is the value of this game? There is a lot of gameplay. I think my playthrough is near 60 hours, I think. 70 hours. I did a lot of side content, so maybe it's even more than that. I wish I wrote it down. But the replay value is there because of the different decisions you can make in the game. Like, do I say this? Do I do that? Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I make this decision or that decision? Basic. In any RPG, like Mass Effect, and the Witcher games as well. The replay value is there, but not for people like me. Like, usually when I play a game, I do everything that I would do in this situation, or I make a certain plot line because I was told to, or whatever. So the reason I wouldn't replay this game is because of how goddamn grindy the gameplay was. Like, I remember I was like, oh, I want to do a different decision playthrough. I actually thought about it. I was like, I want to do a playthrough, and I want to, do Triss because I hated Yennefer. I did it because everyone was like, oh, it's the canon relationship, and she's really funny. No, she's not. She's annoying. I hope I get a bunch of hate comments. If anyone watches this, I would be glad if you posted, no, Yennefer's the best. But Yennefer pissed me off, so I wanted to play and bang Trish, whatever. But because of the grindy gameplay, I literally traded the game in immediately because of how repulsed I was about thinking about playing this game again. Because I already knew a lot of the plot twists, I already knew a lot of the characters, I already made the decisions I wanted to make in most circumstances. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. This is grindy as hell. There's nothing new. I would have to restart my character, and I would just build the same way. I wouldn't build differently. Why would I do that? Quen and Axie are the best spells. Alright. With all this being said, I'm going to give you the final verdict of this game. And this game gets a 3 out of 5. It is definitely an above average game. I feel like the value is really good as well because of how much content is in it and how entertaining you'll be even though the combat's kind of sluggish. I don't think that detracts from the game enough to make it average. So I give it a 3 out of 5. I think it deserves it because of the outstanding dialogue, the production value of the story. And that's my thoughts on the game. Tons of bugs, lackluster gameplay, fantastic story, a ton of content, and great value. Alright, I am Player 2 of P1 and P2 Gaming, signing out.